Jason joins us now. Leighton, you were born and raised in South Africa, and you lived through those riots and those very turbulent years. Tell us what it was like then and how Nelson Mandela changed everything.
It was a very turbulent time in South Africa. Looking back and knowing what we know now, especially living here in the United States for the last 15, 20 years, we have a very different perspective on it, and a lot of people don't really understand the tough situation that we were living in South Africa at that time. And when Mandela was released from prison and that kind of started changing all that, it was a huge awakening for a lot of white people in South Africa as well as to what the real world would entail.
Your brother also had a chance to cross paths with Mandela. Tell us about that.
Yes, he did. My brother was actually his pilot, and so he got to spend a lot of time with Nelson Mandela, flying him around. One of the things that was really cool about Nelson that my brother has talked about for years is how kind he was to the people that worked around him, around his staff, and about, when they would fly to a location, they'd get off, and normally when they would fly presidents or celebrities around, the president would get out the aircraft, get in their convoy, and off they'd go. With Nelson, it was something different. He'd stop, he'd talk to the pilots, he'd make sure that they were taken care of, fed, clothed, make sure that they had a place to sleep, to rest, etc.
I think that's very telling.
Yeah.
How will you remember him?
Probably knowing what I know now as a very caring person, I think he turned a lot of people's minds in South Africa, especially going back to the days of the 70s and the 80s where there was a lot of that turmoil, and he was a great person for bringing people together and for keeping what we would call a calming effect on people. When there was this, differences of opinion, which obviously there were at the time, he had the ability to bring people to the table, and there are lots of stories about how he was able to do that and how he led the country and made people basically see a new light, or what he called a rainbow nation.
Okay, Leighton, we thank you so much for your time and your insight.